Welcome to Practical Shamanism. I'm Katie Weatherup. I'm a former engineer with 20 years of experience working as a shamanic practitioner, and I hope to help you to connect to your personal power and magic and to support you in living a really good life that just keeps getting better. Thank you so much for joining me. So in this podcast, I want to talk a little bit about how different drugs and substances like alcohol and tobacco affect the energy body and how to correct any damage or harm specifically if that's been a part of your life in the past or is a current part of your life. And just to be clear, as a child of the 80s, I got all the "this is your brain on drugs" with the frying egg propaganda campaign that the government put out of, you'll ruin your life completely if you try drugs even one time. And they were mistaken about that or misguided or misrepresenting. So for sure, there's some things that are really impactful on the energetic field, but very many of my clients have some past history with substances. It was part of their journey. And while there's a lot of information about coming into sobriety and those kinds of things from a point of view of the psychological and emotional aspects, very few people are really talking about how to get your energy body right. And the nice thing is it can happen very efficiently and effectively. So the nice thing is that it doesn't have to be this horrible, arduous, terrible process. But knowing some of this and weaving it in either to clean up past damage or to balance out the effects of a current habit will just give you much better outcomes. Because one of the catch-22s that I see with some of my energetically sensitive clients who don't know how to do shielding is that the world becomes unbearably loud over time. And so one of the things that I've shared about my childhood and adolescence before I learned how to put myself in a bubble and have proper energetic shields is I was so overwhelmed by how loud the world was that I was actually dissociative. So usually you need major trauma to be involuntarily leaving your body. And for me, the intensity of all this unmanaged energy on someone who was incredibly sensitive was overwhelming enough to produce those results. And there's a lot of correlation between energetic sensitivity and someone who uses a significant amount of alcohol on a daily basis, because if you've been out in the world and you've been at work and everything's been really loud all day, having a couple of drinks will make it quiet, which can be a really huge relief. The trouble is, though, alcohol also breaks down your auric field, so however good your natural protections are, they're worse for the wear if you have that response in isolation. So it's this catch-22 where the louder the world is, the more relief alcohol provides, but the more alcohol, the more damage to your auric field, so the more permeable things become. And so I definitely don't want to approach this, as I said, any kind of shaming or you're wrong. Everybody has their journey, has their approach, and there's a lot of merit. I've certainly worked with people who I believe would have taken their own lives if they didn't have a strategy to numb at a time in their life when they had no tools and no ability to manage the intensity that they were dealing with. And there are other people who just genuinely like a more adventurous experience. It's fun to play with their biochemistry in certain ways. They have this novelty seeking of other experiences. And my personality type is a little more conservative. I don't like high levels of adrenaline, but my cousin says if the day on his mountain bike wasn't epic enough that he couldn't have potentially died in something or other he did, it really wasn't a very satisfying day. So he has a very different relationship to how much he likes adrenaline in his body. And he's living an amazing, engaged, successful life. He's this phenomenal father and husband and creative and engineer and super bright guy, an amazing person to hold a conversation with. It's not a 24/7 thing, but it's just a part of what really delights and works for him to go max out his adrenaline. And so in working with this, there just isn't a lot of detailed information about how some of these substances affect our energy body. And I want to give you the manual on that so you have informed consent. And if this is something that has been part of your journey in the past or is part of your journey now, you can offset the harm that's happening to your energy body. So you're balancing things out. So for example, somebody for whom it really works to have a couple of glasses of wine every evening, who also gets good exercise and drinks plenty of water and gets enough sleep and manages their stress, in a lot of cases with good health, that will completely offset the little bit of extra burden on their liver in dealing with the alcohol. And bodies and health are wildly different, but my hope is that I can support you in just knowing how to take care of your energy body in a way that is aligned with your lifestyle. And if you're still suffering the effects of some debilitation and breakdown and damage to your energy body from past experiences, those can all get cleaned up so you don't leak your energy. Because when we have damage to our energy body, some not so good things happen. So one of the challenges that happens is our energy field becomes really permeable, which means other people's intrusive energy can come in. These are my clients who deal with entity attachment. So when you have a naturally healthy energy body, it's hard for anything that isn't in a body that shouldn't be messing with you to mess with you. Or if somebody's super annoyed with you on the freeway or annoyed with someone else and throwing energy around, you naturally bounce it off. You have this resilience and this protection, which is really necessary. I like to think of the outer edge of the auric bubble, kind of the equivalent of the skin that we have, where you want your skin to be healthy and intact and free from rips and tears. It keeps bacteria out. It keeps the blood on the inside. It does this magnificent thing, and we don't even need to think about it when it's healthy and whole. And that's what I would love to support for your auric field, because it becomes very loud and disorienting and uncomfortable, and people are difficult to deal with if they're having emotionality at an energetic level. There's a lot of unpleasantness that happens at a very subtle level if your auric field isn't intact. And there's also a huge correlation between a healthy energy body and a healthy physical body. So if we get your energy body all aligned and flowing and doing well, then your physical body is going to be a lot more resilient and healthy and able to recover from injury or when it comes out of balance. So I want to walk you through some different substances and the effects on the auric field, and then take you through some of the remedies, because they look different depending on what you're using or have used in the past. And I just want to say this is a little bit imperfect because I've been working with people for 20 years. It's very common that I have clients for whom this has been part of their journey or is part of their journey. And that being said, people seldom use only one thing in isolation. They may tap out, so it might be alcohol and tobacco and marijuana, and that is the scope of it. Whereas if they're using heavier substances, oftentimes they use a variety. So I don't have the purest picture of, cocaine does precisely this and meth does precisely that. So you'll have to forgive the scientist in me as saying, well, I have a lot of data points that I'm correlating and weaving together, and I'm sharing information that my guides have given me, but there's an imperfect nature, and people's results may vary. People's energy bodies may be resilient in different ways, and so the impact can vary widely. So starting off with just alcohol and tobacco, these are not particularly harmful in single use. Occasional use, not a big deal. But when they're used chronically over and over and over again, they just kind of break down the energy field. And it just has this reduction in the structural integrity, and you're more vulnerable to entity attachment. You're more vulnerable to other people's energy intrusions of energy from the world. It makes it kind of louder inside of you. You don't really know what's yours and what's someone else's. And it can have an effect on health, because the energy body isn't as resilient and healthy. So when the protections at the outer edges break down, you can start to see some diminishing of the way the meridians are open and flow, the way the chakras are clean and clear and open. There can be a buildup of sort of psychic sludge. So the tips and tricks I'm going to give you for working with these actually apply to everything subsequently that I'll talk about. So this is just a really good baseline. So if that's part of your journey or was part of your journey, if it's a current part of your journey, you'll need these practices ongoing. And they're good ones anyway, regardless, even if you have never touched, alcohol, or it's just not part of your journey or anything else. These are still going to be massively supportive of the energy body, so you won't waste your time. But if you had a past drug use and you do the rehabilitation, you can focus on it intensely for a while and then be more on a maintenance. So kind of like if you injured something in your physical body and went to physical therapy, you'd have the rehab time and then you'd have some maintenance exercises. So one of the things that's just a really good practice is some sort of energetic hygiene. So smudging or cleansing your auric field in some way. And then we want to rebuild your energy. So Qigong, which is Qigong, is a magnificent practice. 10 or 15 minutes a day, marvelous results in terms of longevity and energetic health and vitality. So you'll get huge benefit if you're not needing to rehab something and you're just pouring that extra energy. Because I would argue that a lot of humans walk around a little depleted all the time. And so these practices, for anyone, keeping your energy abundant and vibrant and clean and clear, super, super supportive. There's a really good book by Ted Andrews called Psychic Protection, which is just the very best, most comprehensive manual for strengthening and rebuilding your energy body. And so if this is something that you're working with in a significant way, he has all kinds of different exercises that will be hugely supportive in just having a very high level of mastery in not only being able to repair your energy body, but also in knowing when that's necessary. So we know when our skin gets cut, but few people know when there's a rip or a tear in their auric field. And that's something I absolutely know. That's something I'm absolutely in touch with this. And it's a subtle way of learning to use our awareness. And so highly recommend Psychic Protection by Ted Andrews if this is something that's been a significant part of your life, or if you're just a really energetically sensitive person. Also, directly reweaving rips and tears in your auric field is a good idea. So you can run your hands over the inside of your auric field, especially after you've done Qigong and built up some energy, to just put some focus on repairing the places where you've identified thin spots or energetic intrusions. And this is something that I or another capable energy worker or shamanic practitioner can help you with. Reiki treatments are good for this. People can go in and do this kind of auric repair. So it's a good question if someone's working with this to say, how are you at reweaving rips and tears in the auric field? And so getting some help with this is a possibility. But I would say for the most part, much like physical health, a whole bunch of energetic health is an inside job. And so if you get some help to kind of get things moved along, that's wonderful. But expect that it's something that you'll want to put some time and attention on. So moving right along, one of the next things that I'd love to talk about is marijuana. And marijuana is a really interesting one because when I have a client for whom that's a big part of their lives, often the guides are like, well, there's some downsides and there are also some upsides because it's really good for pain management, and being in huge amounts of pain isn't so good. And there's certain amounts of biochemistry that it will sort of help balance, and there's souls for whom it just seems to be the right medicine to make being here incarnate with some of the rawness and intensity of the world work. And again, especially if you go back and forth, that can be, a different experience. But the guides, sometimes they say you might want to be a little mindful, and sometimes they say, we just want to give you some tips if this is a part of your life. So going back, all the energy rehabilitation that I talked about previously is a good idea. And depending on the strain of marijuana, it can put you out of your body. It can be a real ecstatic experience, which is lovely. But the guides say make a point of coming back into your body when you need to. So if you have this open, expansive, visionary experience, and then you come back into your body afterwards, then you're not doing particularly any harm, but you want to make sure that there's a process where you bring your awareness back very present into your body and practicing that as a skill and an intention. And that really works off of intention and focus. So if you're spending 5 minutes in the morning, I do this sometimes just because I go really far in the dream time, just orienting and looking around and feeling my feet on the floor and breathing into my belly and doing maybe a little breath of fire and just really intending to bring all of my awareness back into my body. The other thing that starts to happen a little bit with a lot of marijuana use over a long period of time is interfacing to the rest of the world can get a little hard. So there's a really specific configuration of the human energy body with chakras in a particular place and our auric field available, our heart chakra available to connect with people, our way of processing all the energetic information. Like there's a configuration of how most people's energy bodies are organized, and sometimes our interface gets off. This can happen without, any kind of drugs or alcohol whatsoever. And it's one of the things I sometimes work with clients is saying, oh, your natural wiring just runs a little differently and we need to work with the guides to build an interface. So we add guides to your team, or we realign your energy body between you and the outside world so that you can interface well. And the word interface makes a lot of sense to me as a former engineer because I'm really aware of how things talk to each other. So there's an interface between gears of different sizes. You have adapters if, you have things that need to connect together that are different. And that concept of being able to interface effectively with the world is a really important one because we need to be able to work with systems of money and understand the law enough to retain our freedom while really carrying an internal sovereignty. So it's beautiful to, on the inside, be deeply true to ourselves and deeply clear about who we are, and yet to know how to move through the world with a choice of how much friction we do or don't have. And so we're in COVID times, and there are a lot of reasons that I'm wearing a mask. The science is fairly compelling. At the top of the stack, honestly, more than being afraid of COVID is just kindness to people. It makes people afraid when they see people without masks. And I don't want people to be afraid. People are afraid all the time. It's no fun. And very much in that stack of reasons is the smoothness with which I can move through the world if I comply with this social expectation is very much increased. So not wearing a mask in California in the middle of COVID is going to create a lot of friction with people who have some really strong opinions about that. And I feel like it's good to be at choice. And so I can make good choices for myself. And as an energetically sensitive person, more intrusive energy and judgment and friction, even when I have really good shields, I have to really want the thing for it to be worth it. And not wearing a mask over my face just isn't the thing that I want that much. And so we put ourselves at choice. So being able to easily exchange your time and talent for money in a way that works for you, being able to work with all the systems and structures we have in the modern era, being able to just be in sync with time. All these humans are running around really enslaved to the clock. It's beautiful to create blocks of time where you can go internally and be in stillness until you feel called to move, and move until you are called to be in stillness, and have that internal movement of what's alive and true for you. That's very restorative. But when we're dealing with other humans, we really need to understand what time we've agreed to show up for a meal and have an easefulness with linear time. And so this rebuilding of the interface and getting our energy body in the right configuration is an important part of that. And so if you're someone for whom marijuana is just a really appropriate and supportive part of your life, you also want to develop the skill to bring your energy body into a user-friendly configuration for walking around the world. So your energy very protected and filtering out things that aren't needed, being able to bring your soul awareness fully into your body so you can drive a car safely, being able to go to the grocery store and buy food and, deal with all these systems without it being exhausting and overwhelming and confusing. And so there's a beauty when you can have expansive experiences, but then also be able to shift into navigating the modern world and navigating the human systems in a way that doesn't cost you an undue amount of energy. When I was younger and I didn't have Shield, it cost me so much energy to be out in public and around people. It was really, really expensive and depleting. And I really am passionate about supporting people in the notion that it doesn't have to be that way. And so that adeptness with your energy field to say, all right, I need to go deal with some other people. I need to make friends with linear time. I need to have my soul in my body. I need to have the filters put in place for the chaos that is the public world. I need to be able to process and respond to social cues. Let me learn how to move my energy body efficiently into that configuration as a structure that's very good for walking around. And then if I'm out wandering in the woods, no one will care. I have this freedom to be a little softer in terms of that movement. And so those are some good skills to develop for the best human experience if, in fact, some of these things are part of your journey. Nicotine, tobacco, alcohol, they don't tend to mess with the configuration of the energy body, and they don't tend to cause as much soul loss or people going into the ethers. They're more damaging to the auric field in the energy body. So that's more about, yoga and qigong and smudging and clearing, whereas marijuana is more about just make sure you can come back. If you go, make sure you know how to get present in your life and present in your body again afterwards. And also, it's very hard on our energy body when we aren't present. So if you're traveling really far with the energies that you're riding, and this can be true for people who just don't hang in their body a lot, even if there's no substance involved, that's hard on the physical body. It's hard on the energetic body. So if you're dissociative or you spend a lot of time daydreaming or you're not very present in your body, any of these kind of skills are going to be really restorative to the damage to the body. It's kind of like a house that isn't occupied. It tends to break down. It gets dusty. Bugs find their way in. There's just a kind of a effect on a house that isn't occupied and tended. And it's not like it's going to fall down overnight, but there's a little bit of cleansing and being present with it. And if doors don't move for a long time, the windows get stuck, things like that. And it's kind of similar for your energy body. If you're not fully occupying it, you want to have times where you get really present. And if you're struggling with that, put yourself in an environment you really like. Be really present with old growth trees or something beautiful in nature. Or if nature is not really available because you live in Canada and it's the winter, turn on something like the window channel so you can be present with beauty. And you really want to find the place where you can savor embodiment. So a little bit of a digression. A lot of stuff here is just good on general principle, good medicine for the care and feeding of your energy body. But the need for this seems to be more acute for my folks for whom substances either have been or are a significant part of their journey. So in the second part, I'll talk more about some of the stronger drugs and what needs to happen with them, because those begin to have some different and additional energy effects. Thank Thank you so much for joining me. To learn more about me and my work, please visit my website at handsoverheart.com. There you can join my mailing list for access to free bonus content in the members-only area. If you've enjoyed this, please consider subscribing and leaving a review. It would help me out a lot. Also, a special thank you to my patrons for your support. You offer me the time freedom to work on passion projects like this one. If you'd like to receive personal shamanic support from me and my team of guides, please consider joining my Patreon community. You'll find the link below. And again, thank you so much for listening. This is Katie Weatherup, wishing you wholeness and happiness.